Here we are in Albania, one of the most unknown and underrated countries in Southern Europe, ruled by a dictator and a communist regime.
For more than 50 years, Albania and its capital Tirana was so hermetically sealed they were named the Little North Korea of Europe. Even today, the communist dictatorship will still considered one of the most repressive and bloodiest regimes of contemporary history.
Which built over 173,000 Cold War bunkers and closed off the country to the rest of the world until communism fell in early 1990s. However, Albania is becoming more and more of an exciting travel destination due to its fascinating history and diverse landscapes. Before we go deeper in this video, let me give you a backstory of how we ended up doing a 6 days road trip in Albania in late November during the start of winter season, when it is cold and rainy with average temperatures of 12 degrees. My travel buddy got some cheap ticket from Abu Dhabi to Tirana, the only international airport in Albania. Maybe because it was the end of a travel season to Albania, but we decided to head off anyway and see what we would discover in this relatively unknown country in the Balkan peninsula of Southern Europe. With the cold and rainy days ahead of us, we took the plane and after 6 hours, we touched down in Tirana, the capital city. And it was pouring, naturally as expected for this time of the year. And it already got dark around 4 p.m, which would add to the challenges of our trip, as we could not keep driving in the dark in Albania, as the road infrastructure can be unforgiving with little to no street lights in most areas outside of cities and towns, and mountainous roads with rain every second. Upon dropping our stuff at the B&B, we went straight to try some of Albania's cuisine, and I strongly recommend you try this restaurant. We got some forges. Yes, you heard it right. I was confused at first as it sounded like forges, which is one of Albania's national dishes. It is very tasty and it is made up of peppers, onion, tomatoes and feta cheese, and served boiling hot in either a cast iron or clay pot. We've had it quite a few times and you shouldn't miss it if you ask me. Another great thing about Albania is that it is still affordable for most tourists, especially when it comes to food and beverages. And on average, a 3-course meal for two costs us around 3,000 lek, and 1 Albanian lek is equal to... better write it on the screen. Next day early morning, we decided to explore Tirana, the capital city. Even though it was cold, it is such a vibrant city with cafes and bars around every corner, which adds a really cool and laid-back vibe to the city, especially around the Bloku area, which is the most famous and upscale place in the capital city and most probably the best place to find an accommodation if you are tempted to visit Tirana. We had breakfast at one of the cool cafes along the street and then headed straight to Skanderbeg Square in Tirana, which is the main plaza in the center of Tirana and where Tirana's premier monuments are all assembled. Later that day, we checked out Bunker 2 or Bunker 2 as Albanians say, which is a museum of Albanian history inside a preserved communist-era nuclear pit bunker. Don't forget to check out either Bunker 1 or 2 to get a close feel of the dark communist era and persecution in Albania until the early 1990s. The museum might be a little spooky at times, but that adds to the experience. If you want to see more of the beauty of Tirana, click on the link up here. Next, we headed to the car rental agency to secure our transportation for the days of travel to come. We got a decent car at Eagle Car Rent and luckily faced no issues whatsoever. On day 2, the adventure really started, as we were ready to leave the city and head out to Krka, little bit up north of Tirana, a city that has been inhabited since the 3rd century BC and is rich in history. And although we planned to go further up north to places like Tef and Albania, we decided to change course as the weather was unpredictable with risk of snow on the journey, so instead of the Krka, we decided to road trip more towards the south where most of the great spots of Albania are. After driving approximately 31 kilometers, we reached Krka. Krka is small enough to get around on foot very easily. It is built on a mountainside with a one street bazaar as the central attraction and the renovated castle just above it, and this beautiful attraction can be explored within half a day. The old bazaar of Krka dates to the 17th century, more than 400 years ago, and it extends up to the entrance gate of Krka Castle. You will find lots of artisans in the bazaar doing crafts such as leather and silk work, making of kitchen utensils, furniture and pottery, as well as wood carving, and so much more. And one interesting fact about Krka is that Skanderbeg, the national hero of Albania, resided in the city, an epic man of the 15th century who held off the invasion of the Ottoman Empire for a quarter of a century. Since sunset was around 4 p.m, we decided to hit the road and drove straight to Berat, a UNESCO heritage city about 135 kilometers away, passing through cities such as Jures. The drive took us around 3 hours as roads in Albania are not built for high speed and with occasional stops for sightseeing as well. We reached Berat at sunset and immediately googled the best place to eat traditional food in Berat. We found Lily Homemade Food Restaurant. Sadly, we were too hungry and busy enjoying the fantastic homemade food that we did not feel much, but I couldn't recommend you to try this place enough. This place is an experience. The road leading to it is on a steep slope and encrusted into the beautiful Ottoman houses of the old city of Berat. The host is so enthusiastic and will definitely contaminate you with his enthusiasm. But most importantly, the food was out of this world. It's cooked by his wife and served right away, and just one of the best foods I have had so far. Recommend you to try the aubergine and burek, a traditional Albanian pastry. After this outrageously good food, it was just time for a good night of sleep.
For drink wine, my father made this wine, simple wine. Okay? You understand everything?
Yes.
Here we are in the beautiful city of Berat in Albania. Berat is a World Heritage Site and it's also known as the city with 1,000 windows. And as you can see here, just right behind me. Next day early morning, we decided to do a little bit of exploration in the old city of Berat and head to Berat Castle overlooking the old town. It is such a beautiful and awe-inspiring place, and just makes you want to keep wandering along all the narrow pathways through the Ottoman houses. According to Britannica, the city was rebuilt in the 13th century after probably being an ancient Greek town and later fortified by Turkish people. It is a rare example of an Ottoman-era town, which earned it a designation as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Don't forget to hike up the steep mountain to the castle of Berat. So now we are on our way to the Berat Castle, which is 900 meters uphill. And the good thing at this time of the year is that there are not many tourists, the area is not crowded, and you get the whole experience for yourself, which is very good. Erected on top of a hill during the 4th century BC, Berat Castle is magnificent and elegant. Berat Castle is huge, encircled by stone walls with a total of 24 watchtowers. The most striking thing about this castle is that unlike any other ancient castle, life inside its ancient walls continues to this day. A trip to Berat would be incomplete without seeing the landscape from the heights of the castle.
So right here I'm just in the middle of Berat Castle. Berat Castle seems to be mostly like a fortification with a village in the middle. And I'm standing here with a church, a very old church at my back. And it's supposed to have been built in the 16th century and it is still standing right up here.
One of the most unexpected beauties along the walk through the ruins of Berat Castle is a bust of Constantine the Great, the first Christian Roman emperor. Another great fact about the castle is that it had a total of 35 churches, and today only 10 of them stand, and the Church of Saint Trinity is definitely a must-see, especially for its Byzantine architecture.
I have just reached at the highest peak in Berat Castle, and fun fact is that right in my back is the ruins of an ancient mosque, and just right down here there's a church from the 14th century, and all of them are in Berat Castle. There's this strange looking underground building, and apparently it's a cistern to supply the whole village inside Berat Castle. And right now the water inside it, the level of water inside it seems to be about 5 meters below ground. And hopefully you can hear the echo of my voice inside here. Hello. And I don't know what is the exact depth of it, but to just let you know, it looks a little bit scary. And yeah, we can actually have a look from here. You can see here, it looks like people will go inside to fetch the water, and the water is like way down there, 5-6 meters down.
If you are ever visiting Albania, then Berat should definitely be on your list of must-see places. It is such a fascinating historical place. I recommend you to spend at least one day, which should give you enough time to explore this one-of-a-kind UNESCO site.
So today is our second day here in Berat, and we are planning to leave Berat now to go to Gjirokastër, which is about 6.5 hours drive from Berat. However, the weather today is not in our favor. It's raining since morning, and we are still deciding when we are going to leave exactly. And hopefully we'll make it to Gjirokastër before it gets dark, because here in Albania at this time of the year it gets dark around 4:30. So finally the rain has stopped a little bit, and we have just packed all our stuff and our car is here ready to go. And here's Berat at my back. Very beautiful city, but it's time to leave it now.
While doing my research, I found a picturesque island located about 13 kilometers from the city of Rore, Zvernick Island.
So we just reached in Zvernick. There's a very special spot here, which is this island over there. And as you can see, there are some buildings there, and in the middle of these buildings, there's a church which was actually built in the 14th century. So let's go and see it.
Famous for its stunning forest of tall pines, and it hosts the well-preserved 13th century Byzantine monastery of St. Mary. Take a look. However, I had to bring the drone down quickly as the security guard reminded me that it is not allowed to fly drones on the island. And beware of a dense dark forest, as it is home to a large bat population. On the way back from Zvernick, we passed through a road inside a pine forest, which is one of the most beautiful roads I have ever seen. It looked like an enchanted place. Next, we were on the way to Gjirokastër, and we decided to go through Llogara Pass, a scenic high mountain pass within the Albanian Riviera. However, we had only 2 hours before sunset and we were not going to make it to Gjirokastër. So we decided to stop in Llogara National Park for the night. So this morning, it's 8 o'clock right now. We are planning to leave this hotel in Llogara Mountain to go straight to Gjirokastër. Actually, Gjirokastër was our final destination planned for yesterday, but once we reached the mountains here, we couldn't go further because it was already night time. And now we are planning to leave straight to go to Gjirokastër. The temperature is very, very cold right now. It's about 6 degrees. In about 3 weeks, all this area will be covered with a thick layer of snow. While leaving Llogara National Park, we were hit by a storm high up in the mountain. Luckily, we made it through safely and continued our road trip to Gjirokastër along the Albanian Riviera through cities like Saranda. The weather was getting better after we left Llogara Mountains, but shortly after we reached the coast, we were hit by a hailstorm.
So guys, we are just stuck here in a hailstorm on the Albanian Riviera, and we're just having some coffee in the car while waiting it to pass.
We were determined to continue the journey to Gjirokastër and see the famous blue eye along the way.
So I'm just here in the middle of a forest in Gjirokastër trying to find the blue eye, and apparently there's one on this way. So let's go. Finally I made it to the blue eye. You have to leave your car about 2 kilometers away down the road and do a little bit of a hike to get up here. And with the weather right now being very rainy, it was a little bit difficult to get here, but we made it and it's worth it.
The blue eye is a water spring and a natural phenomenon. It is a popular tourist attraction, but since we traveled to Albania in late November, we got the place all to ourselves.
So here's the blue eye, and as you can see, the water is just coming up from the underground. The water is very, very clear. Wow.
The clear blue icy water of the river can be seen from a depth of more than 50 meters. We left the blue eye to reach Gjirokastër just at sunset, and after a long struggle to drive through the extremely narrow and steep streets of Gjirokastër, we finally reached our B&B. By the time we had set up our things in the B&B, night had already fallen, and we went out to check the old city of Gjirokastër. However, it was raining heavily, but still we were happy to see all the Christmas decorations. Day 6 was the last day of our road trip, and before we left for Tirana, the capital city, we went on to check the old town of Gjirokastër and its bazaar. So now we are in the old town of Gjirokastër, and actually today is the National Day of Albania, and as you can see just right behind me, the guys over there are actually installing some flags just to celebrate the day. It's looking very beautiful here in the old town of Gjirokastër. Gjirokastër is a picturesque Ottoman-era city carved from stone, recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site for its well-preserved, authentic architecture. The city's fortress overlooks the entire city. Gjirokastër definitely has lots of history, and more so as it is the birthplace of a notorious communist leader and their Hoxha, whom I mentioned at the start of the video. And this marked the end of our Albanian road trip. Ahead of us was about 230 kilometers left to go back to the capital city, where the international airport is located. And while you are on the road, just keep an eye for the famous Albanian bunkers, which can crop out of nowhere. A trip to Albania is a real adventure. If you like traveling off the beaten path, then Albania should be on your travel list. I strongly recommend renting a car for your adventure in Albania and just go out there and explore it for yourself. So much to see in between cities. Plan your own route and you will most certainly be amazed by the beauty of the country and its people. Albania was a place that made me realize that travel doesn't have to be expensive to be enjoyable and fun. And that when you have an element of uncertainty in your travel, that's what makes it more exciting and memorable. Albania might well be Europe's last unturned stone and ready to welcome you anytime for an unforgettable adventure. If you're still watching until here, then thank you so much. And one big favor from you will be to subscribe to the channel.